Your Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, was on Capitol Hill yesterday, and it got rough. It got rough for the senators who thought they were going to make inroads with Secretary Hegseth and go after him. And, well, it sort of backfired on them, to say the least. I want to show you a couple of these clips here. By the way, this coming on the very day yesterday when the United States Navy announced that they exceeded their recruitment numbers for this fiscal year 3 months early. This, of course, coming a month after the Army did the exact same thing. Clock's ticking on you, Air Force, but I'm sure you can come through. This is incredible, actually, this success story for the Department of Defense. And did you hear a lot from the U.S. senators about that? Well, not from the Democrats, at least. Certainly not from Elissa Slotkin of Michigan. Come on, Wolverines. What are you doing sending her to the U.S. Senate? Watch this.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I said in your hearing, when you had your confirmation hearing, that my biggest concern with you at the helm was the potential use of the military in ways that contradict the Constitution or that taint what I hope we all want, which is an apolitical military. And when I asked you about whether you would accept an order that was actually given to your predecessor, Secretary Esper, Trump's SecDef, to deploy active duty troops against unarmed protesters and to, in Secretary Esper's words, shoot at them, shoot at their legs. You said this was all theoretical. Here we are, a few months later. You've deployed 4,700 troops to Los Angeles and against the wishes of the governor. And my colleague across the aisle was right. It is the first time since 1965 that we have deployed Guard troops without the permission of the governor. In all the instances he laid out, the president had sent in the military to protect protesters, not against the protesters. So you may dismiss it, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue of American democracy. If you love your country and you want an apolitical military, then it should be the last resort, not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%. Arrest those people, officers. Throw them in the jail, 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's the job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing, authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man, list it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual, did you authorize them to do that?
She is actually trying to be a snot, and she just gave it away by saying, be a man. What is that? And I want to point out that up until that moment, this has been a rather respectful exchange here. And also wish to point out that they both agree on one thing, and that is if you're throwing things at police officers, you're not merely a protester. And she said, yes, arrest them. Now, that's fascinating, considering the fact that that's the only reason the military is there. Let me tell you something. If we just had a bunch of people holding pre-printed signs from Soros-backed non-government organizations standing on the sidewalks, chanting their stupid chants and hitting their stupid drums and cashing their $20 an hour paychecks for going out there and protesting on behalf of the Democrats, we wouldn't have an issue here. We wouldn't have the National Guard deployed in Los Angeles or in California. But everybody knows the truth here, and everybody knows what happened. We had federal law enforcement officers who were being assaulted by these people, and the federal buildings were being attacked and vandalized by these people. That's why the National Guard is in the streets. So the problem here is, when giving a clear and defined answer to Ms. Slotkin, is that they won't say exactly what a protester is. Is a protester somebody who defaces a federal building? Is a protester somebody who blocks traffic? Is a protester somebody who throws something, even a water bottle, at a law enforcement officer? Is a protester somebody who will link arms with an individual who is being arrested by federal law enforcement officers? Because I don't think they are. The second you impede federal law enforcement officers from doing their job and carrying out lawful law enforcement work, you have crossed the gap of being a protester to actually impeding a federal officer's work and duties. And at that point, you're not a protester, you're a felon, and you should be arrested. So this is a trap question, because the second anybody in a military uniform engages with the local police in arresting or detaining somebody who's engaged in those activities I just outlined, they'll say, hey, they're arresting protesters. You said they weren't going to arrest protesters. But you see, they're not protesters anymore. A protester is somebody who stands lawfully exercising their First Amendment rights and sings Kumbaya while drinking espresso from an overpriced Starbucks cup, live streaming on their very expensive Chinese manufactured iPhone. That's what a protester is, don't you know? So now it starts to get ugly, because Alyssa Slotkin did decide to get snotty when she said, be a man, suggesting, by the way, what does that mean exactly? That's kind of gender biased, isn't it? Isn't that kind of sexist? What does that mean to be a man? So only a man acts in a certain way? You mean courageous and forthright and dignified, and women can't do that? What is wrong with her? Where's cancel culture when you need it?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are
Okay,
there
so
to.
say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement.
Do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
who are trying to do their job,
Okay.
deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous
So
administration.
they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As
is
we've
that right?
stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily
Okay.
detain and
Have
hand
you-
over to ICE. But
have
there's
you
no
given-
arresting going
have
on.
you-
And you know this better
Have
than
you
you're trying to
authorized
play
the
political
U.S.
games.
military
There's
to
no
use
arresting
cyber
of U.S.
tools
personnel.
of the U.S. military against members of the protest? Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools to investigate people participating in these protests? Yes or no?
All right, let me just give you a little insight here, having worked in Washington, D.C. in the media for as long as I have now. That question seems sort of out of left field, didn't it? But that is an oddly specific question, and not one of your typical questions, right? I mean, you go from detaining and arresting American citizens engaged in exercising their First Amendment rights to military cyber personnel being authorized. And I'll explain to you where that question came from. She has received a leak. She has received some kind of whistleblower inside information about military personnel or assets being utilized, probably by the Justice Department, which there's nothing wrong with, to further investigate money trails going on in the back door across state lines to help out these groups that are causing havoc and rioting in the streets of Los Angeles. She already knows the answer to this question. That's why she asked it so specifically. So just watch this space and watch the answer.
Certainly in no way that I'd be aware of.
Okay, that's good. I love that answer. That's great. Have you given?
Why does she love that answer? Why does she love that answer? Because the next leak will be to the Washington Post or the New York Times, and then we'll have a scandal that he just lied under oath. That's why she loves that answer. Just remember this, bookmark this, favorite this video. I promise you this will come back. All right, back to Snotkin here. Is it Snotkin?
In the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues
What is
across
that
the
based
aisle.
on? What evidence would you
It
have
is
that an
based
order
on
like that has
Donald
ever
Trump
been given?
giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right.
Did she just talk about his genitals? What is going on with this woman? Just for a second, imagine Marjorie Taylor Greene using this language against Lloyd Austin in a hearing in the House during the last administration. Do you think maybe that would cause an uproar with Rachel Maddow? The hell is going on here, Michigan? All right, so again, the question is, have you given orders to allow the military to shoot at American citizens? And if I were Pete Hegseth, I would also say, what the hell are you talking about, woman? But that's fine. Go ahead. Start talking about his genitals.
He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country, who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life. So I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Good Lord, the drama queen here. By the way, I'm keeping score. I've heard man up, I've heard poo-poo, I've heard balls, and I've heard taint. There's something going on here. Am I the only one? Am I the one with the mind? I heard it all. I heard all of that. Okay. All right. So we got 30 more seconds of this one, and we'll see how Pete Hegseth finishes up here.
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh my God. So your former predecessor, I guess that's not enough for you. Okay.
All right. So there you go. Because her evidence that Donald Trump wants American citizens shot at by the military is from a disgruntled former Secretary of Defense who put it in a book with no corroboration in any way whatsoever. And that's why Hegseth says, be careful what you read in books. All right, so there you go. Let's move on, shall we? Hegseth went across the building to the House side, and one Congresswoman Jacobs from San Diego area had a very important question.
Because if it were, you would be keeping these women in. Instead, you are the one injecting culture wars into the military.
Oh, real fast. I'm sorry. Let me just set it up with a little bit more detail so you know what's happening. She is questioning Secretary Hegseth about the current policy that discharges transgender individuals. Mostly she's concerned about men who enlisted as men and then while in the military decided that they would now present as women. And so it's going to get confusing because she keeps talking about women. And I just want to make sure you knew she means men who dress up like women, you know, like RuPaul or Corporal Klinger, that sort of thing. Okay, go ahead.
Because if it were, you would be keeping these women in. Instead, you are the one injecting culture wars into the military, and it's at the detriment of our military readiness and national security. Now, General Kane, I'd like to turn to you.
So to be clear, these are men who think they're women.
These are women. I'm happy to educate you on
But these are men.
on trans
and so
issues at another
what we've
time.
identified is that there's mental health issues with that belief system.
I'd like to turn to
that
General
are
Kane
detrimental
now.
to readiness, and that's the determination that we've made and that we stand behind. Gender dysphoria.
And so you don't
There you go. That was a pretty good answer there, by the way, by the Secretary of Defense. And it's, of course, been supported and backed up through the legal channels that, of course, it got challenged in. Yes, the Pentagon and the administration and the commander-in-chief have the right to make that determination. I do like the condescension here from our young congresswoman in San Diego, where there's a lot of military, by the way, Navy and Marines all over San Diego area, where she says, I'd be happy to educate you on this. If I were Secretary Hegseth, I would say, oh, please. Oh, can we pause the clock here for a moment? Please educate me on what a woman, because we've been trying to get this answer for years. Frickin' Matt Walsh did a whole movie about it and he still can't get an answer. So yes, educate me about how these are women. I would have loved to have seen how that exchange went. A little bit more from Pete Hegseth. By the way, did you notice that young superstar Congresswoman Ms. Jacobs from San Diego was reading most of what she did? Same thing. Now, I got to say to Slotkin in Michigan, she was referring to her notes and constantly reading too, but she's better at the performance. She rehearsed in her bathroom mirror, I think, a little bit more than most of these congresswomen. This next one, brand new senator from Nevada. She's really bad. Watch the scripted action here and how she just has to stick right there. I mean, she would never make it as a teleprompter reader. Jen Psaki can do miles on her with the teleprompter. Watch how bad she is as she gets into it with Hegseth. If you notice, by the way, they keep throwing women at him. It's all the women who are doing the heavy lifting against Secretary Hegseth on behalf of the Democrats. I wonder why that is. Don't you?
Did you discuss General Hawk's dismissal with Laura Loomer prior to his removal?
I don't discuss who I talk about anything with, but ultimately this is my decision and he serves at the pleasure of the president, and that's why he's no longer there.
So do you believe it's appropriate for any social media personality to influence personnel decisions in your department? Yes or no?
I believe your time is up, Senator.
Oh, it is not up to you to tell me when my time is up.
Well, the time
And I
of
am
the
going to
senator-
say, Mr. Secretary, you're either feckless or complicit. You're not in control of your department. Yours is unserious. It is shocking. You're not combating anti-Semitism within your ranks. It's a dangerous and pivotal time in our nation's history. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. And I don't appreciate the smirk, sir. You are the Secretary of Defense.
I don't appreciate this, Rick. So I love it that her big gotcha moment was a social media influencer having some sort of influence over personnel decisions at the Pentagon. What a nonsense issue that is, especially at a time where we've got our military deployed around the world, where they're getting fired upon on a regular basis by terrorists in the Middle East while they're facing down the threat of China in the Pacific. And the questions are about somebody who got fired, and she thinks it was because of an internet personality, as she puts it. Honestly, it's such a waste of time for us, let alone the Secretary of Defense. And I got to keep it real, as I often do. That whole your time is up, Senator thing. If that were a Democrat and Ted Cruz was doing the questioning and Lloyd Austin didn't want to answer the question and said, your time is up, Senator, I would have hated it. Absolutely hated it. But because it was Hegseth and because the senator was a Democrat, I thought that was a great moment. A little snotty, but that's okay. They need a little bit of it pushed back. And if I had the day that Hegseth had, suffering these fools all day on Capitol Hill, I probably, believe it or not, I know you'll be shocked, would have gotten a little snotty too.